Community-based sanctions, con perspective. 1. Community-based sanctions have high recidivism rates. 2. Offenders need to receive real punishment for their crimes, not just a few rights taken away. 3. Probation officers often work heavy caseloads and cannot provide each case the full supervision it needs, leading offenders to get away with violations of their terms. 4. Community-based sanctions place offenders where they can bring harm to the community. While incarcerated, they cannot commit more crimes. 5. Offenders take too much public resources from law-abiding citizens. 6. The likelihood of rehabilitation for an offender is the same whether incarcerated or on probation. However, when incarcerated, they cannot commit more crimes. Source. Community-based sanctions pro perspective. 1. Incarceration is expensive, while community supervision is much cheaper. 2. Offenders have more resources available to them during community supervision, such as counseling and support groups. 3. Offenders can maintain family relationships and have a good support group when out on community supervision compared to being incarcerated. 4. Offenders have less contact with criminals and are therefore less affected by them. 5. Offenders under community supervision are more productive, such as getting a job, and when they maintain a job, they can help cover the costs of their community supervision and pay restitution to the victim. Source. My opinion on community-based sanctions. I believe that community-based sanctions are appropriate only for low-risk offenders. Low-risk offenders do not need to be put in prison, forcing more tax dollars to go to prison. They should go into community supervision and into rehabilitation programs. However, if the offender does not stop committing crimes, I believe they should go to prison because they have shown they won't change. Drug offenders belong in prison. Con perspective. 1. A majority of people in prison and jails are drug offenders. If they are not put in prison, the incarceration rate will be reduced, thereby saving money. 2. Drug offenses are often small crimes, and if they are thrown in prison, it would open the door to them committing bigger crimes, because they probably lost their job and were in contact with worse offenders. 3. People who commit drug offenses often have a harder future ahead. 4. Drug offenders can get more help with community-based punishment because they would have friends and family to support them. 5. Throwing in the person who used drugs does not only affect that person, but their family as well, because the family often have to go on welfare programs, and then children lose a parent. 6. This type of offense discriminates against the poor and people of color in our country. Source. Drug offenders belong in prison. Pro perspective. 1. Drug use is against the law, and we need to prevent others from using it. A slap on the wrist will not make people stop. 2. Drugs harm people and families and endanger society as a whole. 3. Drug users often also sell drugs or commit other crimes to get drugs. 4. Drug users often get probation, but because they can't quit, they end up in prison. 5. Drug users believe that there is nothing wrong with them, but the thought of prison can help deter them. 6. Incarceration can help save the lives of those who use drugs, because they can't access them anymore. 7. Jail can provide treatment to addicts, but at the same time ensure that a person can't continue to use and forces them to show up for treatment. Source. My opinion on drug offenders in prison. I believe that only people who sell drugs should be sent to prison. People who are just using drugs should be put in rehabilitation programs and monitored. In 1994, of the prisoners released, 32.6% of them were non-violent drug offenders. Sending non-violent drug offenders to prison can ruin their future and make life harder for them. Sending the sellers of drugs to prison accomplishes more, because we are taking the people who are giving drugs to people off the street. Source: GPS monitoring for sex offenders. Con perspective. 1. Child offenders cannot be rehabilitated and will always be rapists, kidnappers, and child killers. 2. Chemical castration is faulty because the offender has to keep taking pills on their own free will. 3. Sex offenders are unreliable. 4. Even people who do take their pills can still feel sexual desire for specific people. 5. Even when sex offenders are being GPS monitored, they still continue to offend. 6. Sex offenders should stay in prison. Source: GPS monitoring for sex offenders. Pro perspective. 1. There's treatment and medication to help sex offenders' desires. 2. GPS monitors allow law enforcement to see where they are and ensure they remain in the appropriate areas. 3. GPS with treatment plans can help offenders. 4. Their treatment plans are required. Source: My opinion on GPS monitoring for sex offenders. I believe that GPS monitoring is not enough for sex offenders. While GPS is helpful for determining a person's location, it has many flaws. GPS does not tell law enforcement exactly where a person is when they are in a building. It also depends on factors outside the GPS, such as weather or terrain, that affect whether GPS monitoring works. GPS trackers are also sometimes seen as an after-the-fact thing, meaning that if a crime is committed, they can look at the GPS history to see if that person was there. GPS trackers are not enough to ensure the safety of potential victims. Source: